What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, January 18th of 2023? If you are a fan and you like what we do here, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. Just go search the Alex Cuesta Show. You'll find us everywhere. So before we jump into our guest, which me and Dave are absolutely freaking pumped over, I'm going to say hi, Dave.
Hi. You know, weirdly enough, I feel like I tune you out in every intro until you ask me how I'm doing.
You know, weirdly enough, I feel like I tune you out. Full stop.
No, it's fair. I agree.
But no. So, Dave, I'm happy you're doing good. I'm not going to ask you a lot of small stuff because I want to get it moving. Yeah. Before we jump in, everyone, if you didn't get a chance, please go listen to last week's show. We had George Alexopoulos on. He's a fantastic political cartoonist, and he just put out his first children's book, Goofberry Pie. It should be coming to my house any day, so I'm pumped to get it. We had a great conversation talking about his political cartoons, writing origin. The manga anime kind of took over a little bit as we talked a bunch about that and nerded out. So it was a great time. So please go give that a listen. This week, Dave and I are pumped. Yeah. We have a fantastic guest on here. If you're someone that right now in this generation likes watching all the YouTube video game scene, ever enjoyed something like a G4, like watching Twitch, you owe a lot to our guest right now because he is an internet/YouTube gaming pioneer. We wouldn't have half the shit that we have now without him and his visions. He's Stuttering Craig Skistimas. I messed it up.
Nailed it.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you very much for the very generous intro.
Well, yeah, you know, and you probably get it a lot, but it's true because, you know, I grew up, catching a lot of your things. I know David watched a bunch of it as well. I want to jump right into it. So ScrewAttack, you are a co-founder of ScrewAttack. You had a ton of success there, and it really started to revolutionize the way that the internet kind of worked. YouTube kind of worked with the way things were done. What made you really want to do that? Why did you start that?
Yeah, so ScrewAttack was fun. We had a really good ride, and so I had a I grew up playing video games. Love playing video games. You know, Super Nintendo is like my jam. It'll always be my comfort game system that I can always go back to, play whatever it is, right? So and then pretty much through high school, I played sports, and it was right during that like N64 era. And I kind of, everyone has that dark time in their gaming life that they just kind of tune games out for a few years. And that was mine. Right. Yeah. So when people ask about the N64, I'm like, games, so went to college and had a degree in, went and got a degree in broadcast journalism and, spent time in. It took me 6 years to get through school. Took a month off, or took a semester off to play slam ball, and a semester off just to kind of goof around. And then
I got to stop right there, which is awesome because if anyone doesn't know about slam ball, I do remember watching you because I watch slam ball, and you're one of the original people. So you're not only a pioneer in gaming, you're a pioneer in something they need to absolutely freaking bring back because slam ball is so much freaking fun.
They are bringing it back.
I hope they do it the right way, though.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But finished up school, had a degree in journalism, and I called basketball and football play-by-play at the school I went to, and called all sorts of high school games. And it was one of those things where it's like, well, I would love to have a degree or love to have a job in broadcasting. And then I kind of looked at the situation after spending, 6 years of doing this. And I realized that for me to have a career in broadcasting, I needed to know somebody, and I didn't really know anybody. So, I could get a job calling, AA baseball games in Lincoln, Nebraska, and hopefully somebody dies. Right. And then I eventually maybe make the cut. Right. And, or I could start something fresh. And, at the time I was kind of looking around the internet, and, I just kind of getting back into gaming, and, Tom and I had been friends for a decade at that point. We got to know each other through playing basketball in high school. And then we worked together through college. So we were, I would say we're buddies, really good buddies. And, kind of looked around and was like, well, I'd interned at a radio station, and I felt like I knew a background about radio and stuff. And I was like, well, there's nobody talking about radio, like talking about video games on doing a radio show. So that was kind of the original idea. And it started with the podcast, which was this crazy thing that nobody was doing in 2005 and 2006.
So brand new. Yep.
Yeah. It was not even getting close to the climb of the mountain, right? It was just like at the very base of it. So we started doing this podcast called Side Scrollers, and Side Scrollers was originally going to be like the brand, and ScrewAttack came later on when we needed a website to put it on. So we were going to be like the Side Scrollers on ScrewAttack.com.
Yeah.
And but then we just kind of became ScrewAttack after we realized that it was a lot of work, and we needed so the original idea that was going to separate us was we were going to make something original every day, and that was like the tagline of the website. And that was radically different than anything that at the time. I mean, this was if you think about, like, now everything's updating so quick with social media. There's you share your thoughts instantaneously. It was obviously a lot different back then. So it really allowed us to kind of spread our wings and get out there because we were doing something that was very different. And anyways, so that was pretty much the origin. It was like, what is somebody not doing? And that's kind of how Side Scrollers and ultimately ScrewAttack started. And started with the podcast. Then we started making videos. Then we invited some friends online that we had met to start making stuff. And Angry Video Game Nerd or Angry Nintendo Nerd at the time. And several partners that we had. And it was all like handshake agreements. And it was very loosey goosey, friend to friend, a bunch of guys just trying to figure out. It was really fun. So.
Seems like it, yeah. So what's it like now? You're looking at a gaming internet right now, like YouTube has all those games. What's it like seeing a lot of people, they're doing different things, but a lot of the stuff you guys were really messing around with and doing some certain stuff, like you see a lot of people talking about, their favorite games, like the top 10 stuff, or, there's so many different, like, battle, who would win here type of things. Right. And obviously, X-Play was a complete and total ripoff of Let's Play. So it's like, what, how do you feel when you look out at that? And it's like, are you happy to see that your work spawned so much of this? Are you kind of like, hey, assholes, that's mine?
It's funny to think about, but I like to think of it. I heard it described to me as kind of, we walked so others could run. And I think that's a good way to say it. And I'm not like mad or bitter about it. I actually think it's pretty cool. I hope that someday, brands that were around at that time that kind of laid the groundwork eventually get their due. Which the internet moves so fast that, like ScrewAttack is just kind of dust in the wind right at this point. It's one of those things where if you were there and you were part of it, you get it. But if you don't, you don't. Yeah. And ultimately, right. And it's ultimately the job of the people who were there to kind of help lead its legacy back, and to let people know that it existed. And, that's why I love going on these shows and talking about things. Cause, somebody will be like, oh, I think I remember that guy. His voice sounds familiar, and I get that all the time. And especially since I've started to get back into this over the last, 3-4 months, that's the one thing that I've consistently found is people go, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you. It's like I'm 13 again. Yeah. And so it's pretty cool. It's been pretty fun.
It was actually David that was like, hey, Stuttering Craig's jumping back into things. And I'm like, no shit, is he really? And then I went, and that's when I kind of like looked you up and I was like, I'm gonna shoot my shot. And you were gracious enough to be like, yeah, I'll jump on. And that was just so cool. So ScrewAttack happened. You eventually jumped in to GameAttack. What made you want to go away from what you built with ScrewAttack and go right into GameAttack? So
ScrewAttack was we saw a lot of success at ScrewAttack, and you mentioned Death Battle, the show that we did. We had a lot of diversity in our shows, right? Like we were doing live stuff before live was even a thing.
We just did so much.
We did the first daily news show in the gaming world with Hard News. We did so much first. And when you do things first, that gives you an opportunity to grow an audience. Well, Death Battle was kind of the first show like that online. There are shows on TV. There was a show called Deadliest Warrior, which very much inspired. very much inspired Death Battle.
Yeah.
But so Death Battle launched, and it saw like a meteoric rise of popularity, and that is what the brand got to be known for more than anything else. Almost to the point to where it was kind of discouraging, and we would really put our heart and souls into top 10s or whatever, clip of the weeks or any sort of series or live content. And the comment we continuously saw was, well, who's going to win this fight? Or this person should have won this, or Superman should have beat this, or Goku, whatever. And it was just kind of like, all right. So we reached a point to where ScrewAttack was going to grow regardless. It had reached that critical mass, and we were seeing subscribers every day, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And it was going to be profitable. But the biggest thing was that I found that when we spoke, our audience didn't necessarily listen. And it didn't allow us to have that connection with our audience because the show Death Battle kind of engulfed the rest of the brand and the rest of the shows. So for me, my biggest thing with any brand that I work with, I want to have like an intimate relationship with the audience. And, when you say, hey, we got this new show coming, and they say, and the YouTube audience goes, yeah, but Chun-Li should have beat this person. It was like, it was kind of like, so that's what ultimately led to Game Attack. There was, I felt like ScrewAttack had grown to a point to where it was fine. And Game Attack was kind of like a refresh for me. And there were some other things behind the scenes. Like I had, when I sold ScrewAttack, we were working with Rooster Teeth, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I did not want to be there any longer than I had to. I had a contractual obligation to be there. And Game Attack for me was kind of like a breath of fresh air to kind of escape and potentially just kind of enjoy the last few months of my contract with Rooster Teeth. And when my contract ended, they were fortunate. They allowed me to essentially take Game Attack with me, which was like really nice because that's like unheard of. So that was like really nice of Rooster Teeth. But Game Attack was meant to kind of be, initially it was meant to be the third gaming brand in Rooster Teeth. It was supposed to be Achievement Hunter, and then Funhouse, and then Game Attack. And we had that's what they told us it was going to be. That's what they wanted us to be. But then there was like no action behind it to help. Like they didn't want to help promote Game Attack. They didn't want to, do any cross promotion. It was very difficult to work with the other brands, kind of, them appearing in our stuff, us appearing in them. And so then it was like the writing's on the wall. Let's bounce. And then eventually it became a kind of a live streaming brand because the YouTube game is incredibly hard to make money on. So we eventually turned to live streaming, and Game Attack was really excellent at creating original content and incentivizing its audience to support it. That's something that, when that was like my job to figure out the business model. I was like, okay, how are we going to make money? So Game Attack was like a necessary for me. And it was also necessary for me to leave Game Attack when I left.
Yeah, that's, and it's like, you look at the things that like I was talking to Dave earlier, and it's like, as I see you making this comeback, I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind that Stuttering Craig's going to be good because everything you've ever been a part of, like you started and like it has really turned, because like Game Attack did balloon, like you jumped in there and it did balloon, it gained the following, like, so it's like, and now as you're gone from both of these things, it's really just Death Battle. That's all that kind of is left. Right. And so there's like no doubt in my mind when I heard you're making a comeback that you're going to do that. So I'm excited to see exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to jump into it. So I'm pumped for that. Now, Dave, you brought up kind of some things that happened. We want to get Craig's opinion on it.
Well, real quick, but do you want an exclusive?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Today is Wednesday, the 18th. Give me 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and you'll know what's up.
3 weeks. So we're clipping that one.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. I like it.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So now we want to get some opinions. Now that I'm all hot and bothered, now we want to hear Craig some opinions here.
All right. So there have been some recent controversies. I'll call them controversies.
There's always a controversy about something.
Yeah, it's mainly on the Twitter sphere. So you can call that a controversy if you want, but normal people probably haven't heard of most of these things.
Right.
So mainly sticking to what's happened recently in the gaming sphere. One not so big, one a bit bigger, even though one's a convention. But at MAGfest, I'm sure you saw. In fact, I'm certain you saw it because I saw your tweet about it. But they took a bit of a jab at Kotaku, which, I mean, I completely agree with. I don't very much like Kotaku, but they put on one of their signs mapping out where to go, Kotaku's journalistic integrity, error 404 not found. Kotaku complains.
It's a good joke.
Yeah, it's a great joke. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Right.
But Kotaku complains, and then they take it down. And then something in a similar vein, I feel like this is not only the gaming culture, but just what's been going on recently in just society. But limited run games gets pestered, but it seems like really one person about an employee of theirs following some conservative accounts, some really not very conservative, but and I think maybe tweeting some things out. I'm not sure, but either way, pestered about it, and then they decide to fire the employee. They get I'm still pretty sure they're still getting hounded. People are not going to buy from limited run games anymore. But this has just been an issue all over, but also in gaming. I mean, luckily, I feel like there's a good amount of gamers that'll fight back. But what do you think of just the fact that it seems like these places, either corporations or companies or even conventions, it doesn't take a lot for them to crumble at almost any kind of pushback. And it's just a little ridiculous to me.
Well, so we live in this really crazy world right now where everybody's a bully, but everybody's sensitive, right? Yeah. To where as soon as, everybody comes out with their swords blazing, but everybody is, allergic to wind. Yeah. And it's really, so in the case of MAGfest, right? Mm-hmm. That is the culture of MAGfest. That's what MAGfest has been. I mean, I started going, I think my first MAGfest was 2008, maybe 2007. Yeah. I went way back in the day, long before it became like the giant megalithic event that it is today. Mm-hmm. And it kind of helped build the culture of that event. And that's what MAGfest has and will always be, and it should always be. Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating to see how quickly people run to buzzwords about things, Gamergate. Although it's like, what are you talking about? Like
happened a long time ago, buddy.
Right. It's like, extremist, all these things that just get thrown out so quickly. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? I just sneezed, I don't even know what you're talking about.
COVID.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are you vaccinated? And it's amazing to see the reactions of how people crumble and how quickly people will apologize for literally nothing. Yep. If I was MAGfest, I'd be like, yeah, it was a joke. Suck it up, Buttercup, and tap them on their head and send them on their way. But that's the difference, right? When you have, let's just be real, MAGfest and the gaming community as a whole, right? The gaming community as a whole is, filled with a lot of people who are looking for something to connect to, right? Mm-hmm. And when they find a connection to something, sometimes there's different groups, there's different personalities that you gravitate to, people who are like you, people who you want to be like, whatever. And there's a certain way of thinking in the gaming space. It's very, the gaming industry has a giant stick up its butt, right? It's like a giant. Which is amazing because you're talking about an industry about games, right? And that's the one thing that people they really lose track of. And I think that's one of the things that I've always tried to keep in perspective, whether, no matter what I'm doing, is that games should be fun, right? And you can have your opinions about things and that's fine. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't deter us from talking about games. Yep. And I had a really, really good conversation with a longtime viewer the other day on Twitter where, and it was like the nicest thing anybody could say. It's like, look, I don't agree with some of the things that you think, and that's fine. But in my interactions, it's never changed the way you treat me. It's never changed the way that you interact with me or anybody in your community. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Yeah. It's called being human, and you can have different perspectives on things. And you should be able to joke about things like, journalistic integrity and stuff. It's like, let's be real. I mean, the gaming space and the gaming journalism space, right? There's like 3, 4, maybe 5 real journalists who are actually getting stories. The rest are regurgitating other news, and the rest are getting stuff from Reddit or Twitter, or the rest are getting stuff from press releases. So,
and they're also there just to get free video games sent to them so they can play them.
Hey, been there before. Love it. As far as limited run games go, yeah, man, that's a mess. Like, you see these companies that literally ruin their companies based off snap decisions and ruin their reputation, literally ruin their business. And it's going to take a long time for limited run games to dig out of this hole. We still haven't said anything. I think, they're talking about, well, their statement was we did like a discovery process, and this is something that we want to make sure that everyone's included here, except right? There's always like, but they made
for right wing extremism and Hitler supporters and Nazis.
Right. I'll say this: if the video game industry was as hard on left wing extremists as it was the right wing extremists, there would be no video game industry.
But didn't you know there's no such thing as left wing extremists? Right. They're mostly peacefully protesting and taking over small parts of cities, and that's okay.
Whatever.
They're just acting out on their anger.
That's right. But you see this company. So limited run games, the account that tweeted to him at like 9 a.m. By 5 o'clock that night, they had fired the girl, right? And they had put a tweet out. That is not an investigation. No. That is a snap judgment that will lead to them being sued and losing because the idea that North Carolina, where they're based, is a right to work state, but there's laws in the books that say you can't be fired based off your social media presence. And that's why she was fired, based off her social media presence. So I think that they're going to get sued out of oblivion. And I think this girl who lost her job will no longer be the community manager. She'll be the CEO by the time this is all said and done. And I think that's great. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think it's great because you can't bend the knee ever to these people. I always talk about, Twitter is not real life. It's totally fake. And it's
all the time.
I mean, the thing is, everybody knows it, but these companies, they get wound up and they go, and you think about, let's say somebody sends out a viral. I think one of the best things that Elon Musk has done is he's added a view count to these tweets, right? Right. So you can actually see the
everyone's getting ratioed all the time.
Right. So this lady who got this lady fired, in limited run games, sent out that tweet. There was, I think it was almost 8 million impressions of that tweet of them saying, "Look, we let go of this girl." Like 8 million free impressions of them digging their own grave, right? And think about the impressions of that first tweet that she made prior to them making that. I don't know, maybe high end 5,000 impressions, maybe high end. So they literally did it to himself. I have zero sympathy for him. I mean, I don't know a single person who's like, yeah, I can look past it,
Exactly.
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter whether you're left, right, center, gay, straight, black, whatever. It shouldn't matter. None of that should come into play in any of this situation. You should be able to think however you want to think. And just because you follow somebody or you said something in 2016 that somebody in 2023 disagrees with, it's like, man, welcome to the party, pal. Like, I think you can dig through literally every single person in history and find something within the last 5, 6, 10 years. And you'd be like, oh, canceled today, but when it comes down to being canceled, you can only be canceled if you care. And I don't care. I'm long past caring. So,
I mean, you just espoused so much white nationalist, bigoted. If we've ever learned one thing right now, the only way to deal with any sort of sexism, racism is prejudice against that. The great prophet Ibram X. Kendi once said that. So I'm just disgusted to hear you say that, Craig.
Well,
oh my God.
I'll tell you what, this is not the first time somebody's been disgusted with me. I was canceled on Twitter.
Of course.
I was canceled on Twitter. So I actually have my second Twitter. My first Twitter account had like 50,000 followers, right? And I just totally deleted my entire Twitter account. I was like, whatever. And I came back to it a couple months ago and I was like, okay, I'll give it a go again. It's not quite the cesspool it was. But the original time I got canceled was it was after one of the presidential debates. And there were all these brands that were coming out and being like, if you vote a certain way, you are not welcome in our community. And I was like, what are you talking about? And all I said was, I don't care how you vote. I don't care what you believe. Everybody's welcome in my community. And it's amazing to see all these people who have these amazing welcoming communities that only want you there if you think a certain way. And people were like, I got white this and blah, you know, it was amazing. And I was like, what? So
yeah. Yeah, it's insane. It goes back to like that old Michael Jordan adage where it's like Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yes.
Like what? Yeah. Like what's wrong with you? Why? Like
Jordan would be canceled right now. He would have been chastised to all existence. He would have been ratioed and everything. So I have to ask, what is your opinion on the relaunch of G4 and then the meteoric fall of G4 after they decided to let what's her name? Frost, whatever her stupid name is, go on the most idiotic rant I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, when you look strictly at the data of G4, that is definitely the line of demarcation where things fell off, right? Like literally from month to month, if you look at their Social Blade stats, which is what you gauge on like YouTube, you know, it was anybody with any sort of knowledge of the world that we live in right now would realize that launching a gaming television channel in the year 2022, 2021 was a really horrible idea, right? Everybody has their own gaming channels that they can watch at any time right now in their phone, on their phone, with Twitch, with YouTube, whatever.
And, you know, and I'm sorry, Craig, also to bring it back without having smoke shows talking about video games again is a problem because let's face it, who was watching it? A bunch of nerds. A lot of the times, you know, obviously gaming's gotten a lot more vast. It is not just geeks and nerds anymore. But a lot of it was a bunch of nerds looking at these smoking hot chicks going, hey, they play video games too, so I shouldn't feel so bad. Like, you know, there was something to that.
There was a lot to it because, you know, I don't think it was necessarily the girls helped because when they had Amaranth on in a tub, like, you know, I was like, oh, we got to check that out. Right. Yeah. But when you look at what they did to totally distance themselves from their past and say, like, we need to correct the wrongs of our past. Like, how pretentious can you potentially be, right? Yeah, exactly. Hey, we were massively successful the first time. We should fix that. Yeah, and you know what? They
we
did.
Had two of the biggest shows on cable at the time with Attack of the Show and X-Play. Right. Let's not do them again.
Right.
Like,
and you know, so the Frost thing was just really, I mean, that was like viral, right? And they saw this like little like, oh, G4 is a thing. Then everybody like bounced. That was their regular viewers. Yep. And I think, once again, I think it was one of those things where these flash decisions, these quick decisions, just buried an entire brand. Now with G4, you see the exact same thing with limited run games, to where you know, it's going to be a slow bleed, right? And eventually someone's just going to cut off the head and be like, oh, we messed up, you know? So it's the toxic brand. And I think that the saddest thing about it, like the saddest thing about G4, not the Frost thing, like she can say whatever she wants. I you know, I agree with a lot of things she said. It was the tone that she said, you know, like, look, I think, you know, women and gay and girls, and they have their place in gaming. They should have their place in gaming, whatever. I mean, I don't think anybody should be like, no, get in the kitchen, you know, like whatever.
Man, woman haters.
Right. Like, come on, what are we talking about? Like, but it was the tone that she did, the pretentiousness of it, the way she addressed the audience. And then you see how people like Adam Sessler, they're just broken. Like they've been broken by everything that has happened in the last couple of years. And it's really sad. And, you know, Sessler goes on these like Twitter rants where he's like, I'm not a gamer and F you and blah, blah, blah. And Trump this and blah, blah, blah. And COVID and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, boop. I'm a broken robot.
It's tragic. It's tragic to watch.
It is. Like, I feel sad.
And you know what, Craig? For her to sit there and say, like, we don't play these games. It's like, okay, we know there's a team there. We know you have help. But to say that you don't play the games that you're trying to tell people about, that you're trying to give reviews, when, David says all the time, you can go on a YouTube channel and watch a person physically play the game while telling you about it. Like, then what do we need you for? If you're not playing the games, if you're not a pseudo expert on the game that you're telling us about, what is your purpose? Like, what are you doing?
G4 tried to do the same things that they were doing, a decade ago, right?
With the same games. That's the problem.
Well, but the problem is that their hosts weren't likable. Nobody liked their host, right? And the people that they brought in to, that were like YouTube personalities, they didn't utilize them well. I think of they tried to leverage Scott the Waz's audience, right? And they're like, you can watch Scott the Waz videos on G4. And it's like, cool, I can watch them right now on my phone. Why don't I need to tune in an hour?
Exactly.
And the idea was as a producer, you hop on the board because number one, they're going to write you a check, right? Mm-hmm. And number two, you think that it could potentially hit you to a vaster audience. Mm-hmm. But we learn now that it was the lowest rating show on TV, the idea, and the numbers are just insane. The idea that you can have a television network and have 1,000 viewers during prime time is just
ridiculous.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing that it's
sad.
If everybody got their friends who was a host to you'd be close to 1,000 people, right?
Their family didn't even watch at that point.
Nobody cared. So, it was definitely sad to see, but it was very predictable. Very predictable.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, I actually want to jump to something that Alex complained to me about earlier today, and I feel like you guys be able to talk about this a little bit better than I could. G4 is kind of tangentially connected to this, but we're seeing a lot of things get rebooted or redone or remade, correcting our success for some reason. And a lot of it seems to come from Alex's generation, your generation, not as much from my generation. I'm a little too young for some of that stuff, but mine's coming, I know, and I can't wait, honestly.
It'll happen.
Pretty funny. It's going to be pretty funny. I'll watch it and laugh, but I don't understand why they decide to really take things and just ruin them. like you have a very easy script, and honestly, if you just rebooted it, people might complain, but they won't hate you.
Right.
It is a big difference.
Right. So I've been asked many times about I've been pretty vocal that I want to reacquire ScrewAttack, mainly because I just want to own the catalog and I want to put it out. And the thing about people are like, well, would you reboot it? Absolutely not. All I would do is I would release the content in its original order, and I would treat it like it's a time capsule. That's awesome. And to where when you watch it, it's like you're watching something from 2006 and 2023 or 2024, whatever it is, right? And it feels like there's this weird time capsule that happens. But
I think, where were you then? Like as you're watching, what was my mindset watching this?
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, I was eating Captain Crunch, right?
Delicious.
But I think reboots are okay if the right people are associated with them, yes. Right? If you can reboot something with the original person behind it, that's good. Now, I think of a reboot that was hysterically bad, they tried to reboot one of my favorite TV shows recently, Quantum Leap. And I don't know
why would they do that?
Well, I saw one video of Az reviewing it, and I was like, I don't need to hear more of this.
It's the worst. It was
my
the worst.
Dad was a big fan of it, and I would catch episodes every once in a while, I was young, and it was a cool show then, but it was a show that you had to you could get lost in Quantum Leap. If you weren't up on Quantum Leap, you were screwed. And it was so intricate, so it had to be an intelligent remake.
Right. So the biggest mistake they made, now they actually had the original guy behind it, but the casting was all well, we want everything but a white guy, and
diverse.
They did the diversity thing. And but the biggest problem was the diversity thing, whatever. I don't really care about that. But they didn't have the original actor attached to it, Scott Bakula, right? And he was the guy who originally played the original character. What the most insane thing about that was that he was the show was on NBC. He signed a deal with NBC after that to work on another show at NBC. Like, how do you have this guy work at
in the studio?
Yeah, like literally right there, and you don't even have. They didn't have an appear in the show, and they try to like loosely tie it to the old show, but it's like, oh, only in the first episode to be like, well, this was this, blah, 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 and it's like everybody saw right through it. And I haven't looked at the ratings, but if they get picked up for a second season, I would, I'd be shocked. But that's the type of stuff that just drives me crazy. But I do think that reboots can be done if they're done the right way with the care of like original founder, original personality behind it. So.
Yeah, I feel like they're killing everything that I once loved. Lord of the Rings and all that. Like they're destroying it all. Now I feel like the only company that's possibly like translating what they had in the video game world well onto the screen has been Nintendo. And I think it's because they are super protective of their properties. And they're like, you're not screwing up what's keeping us going and keeping our fans duped for the same game year over year. So it's like Detective Pikachu, surprisingly awesome. Nintendo's been heavily involved with Sonic for a long time now since Sonic came over. The Sonic movies have been really enjoyable. This Mario movie looks good, even though they de-assed Mario, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. But that movie looks like it's good. So it seems to me it's like gatekeeping is actually a good thing, right? In a lot of ways, because now we get to keep those products. So yeah, no, I'm frustrated about it. Everything that I loved in my youth, Marvel, DC, they destroyed Dragon Ball the one time they tried to do it. Like it just makes me unhappy, everything that they do there. So I'm hoping they stop it, but they're not going to.
Well, Alex, you sound like the internet.
I'm dejected. Okay. I am dejected. I am Twitter. I am angry Twitter without the liberal lean.
Okay.
So go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say he's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not. But when Rings of Power is coming out, in order to torture him, I kept bringing it up to date information about what was going to happen in the show.
I hate you so much. But so right now, as you're entering into this new chapter, you gave us a nice little teaser. Are you coming in there now that you've taken a break? What are the lessons that you've kind of learned that you're bringing into this as you're starting from scratch again? Like, have you looked back on your past and go, screwed that up, should have done this better. This is what I'm going to take now. Like, how are you molding what you're trying to do now?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Without giving too much away.
No. That's great. So I would say, I launched this new Craig Talks News channel, and that the way I describe that is I'm kind of like sharpening my blade for what's next, right? That's kind of been done with the purpose of getting back to talking again. And just talking with people or just talking about these type of things. So I would say this, I have definitely looked at the things that have worked and the things that have not worked. And that's been a learning process. Especially with the Stuttering Craig YouTube channel, right? Is kind of going back and being like, well, I want to reinvent myself. And that channel's been all over the place over the last, 5-6 years. But, I took a step away, and stepping away was like the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was just like a curmudgeon. I didn't like being around
quality use of the word.
Right. It was like, man, I felt burnt from leaving Game Attack, and I was getting ready to launch another brand and stuff, and I felt good about it, and I believed in it, but in my heart I was like, and that was going to be like a social media for creators to collaborate with each other on and stuff, and I felt really strong about the idea, but the opportunity to leave the industry popped in, and it was like I totally didn't pay attention to anything for like a year. The only thing I did in the gaming world was like play Apex on the PlayStation 4, and that's it. And outside of that, I didn't keep up with. I mean, I didn't even know that the PlayStation 5 was out. I didn't know that the Xbox had a new name. I didn't know it. Like,
well, I mean, the PlayStation 5 was like only technically out for the longest time because they couldn't make enough machines to, what? That's a ridiculous. But yeah, sorry, continue.
No. But like taking a step back in. Yeah. I'm kind of playing the old favorites right now with kind of a new twist. if that makes sense. I'm doing like some top 10s and stuff, and those are like helping to grow that. And I'm doing news, and kind of what's next is I'm hoping that it's something that people will be excited for. But I've definitely learned that I've known this for a long time, but collaborating and working with people that you really enjoy being around and talking with is probably the most important thing. Yeah. Doing this on my own, especially like I just got monetized on the new channel, and that was really exciting to it's like a personal little thing. Like I did it. Yeah, I did it. And it's been humbling, which is really, really cool because the space has changed so much. When ScrewAttack was there, it was the big dog because it was one of the first dogs, right? Yeah. And now I am a tiny dog in a vast sea of just mutts. And so you got to scrap and claw, and you got to fight, and you got to get creative, and you got to really play the game. And that's been a big part of the process as well. Of like, especially with the news channel, is really like playing the game, making sure the metadata is correct, your titling strong, your thumbnails good, talking about the right stuff, and so it's been exciting. It's been really exciting to kind of get back and these are, in the grand scheme of things, they're small goals, but right now they're giant goals, and they're really, it's really, really fun. I am very much enjoying the grind, in the best way possible. And people go, it's not a grind if you enjoy it. No, man, it's a grind. But
it's a grind. I'll attest to that. David will attest to that. It is a grind. Yeah. So, it's only temporary for you to be the little dog. I'm saying that right now. It's only temporary. You're going to be back on top soon. And what you said about working with, people you enjoy, maybe that's our problem here, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I really shouldn't work with you. No.
Shouldn't work. What are you doing here? No, but
I am very happy to hear about just you're enjoying all of this, and obviously now getting monetized. But funny enough, the reason why I saw that you were back in any aspect, because I watch a lot of Geeks and Gamers. I watched Tuesday Night's Main Event, and I was watching their vlogs for their little content house that they're doing in Orlando, and I was like, holy shit, that's Stuttering Craig. That's incredible. That's wild. I haven't seen him in so long. And I'm just happy to see that you're back and you're enjoying what you're doing. And I can't wait to see the new things that you're going to come up with.
Yeah, man. The Geeks and Gamers crew are excellent. People look, they have hard edges, right? Then that's fine. And I think that's awesome. And we've talked about it with them. I've talked about with Jeremy and the crew over there and Ryan. And I think that's what makes them who they are. And I love that, right? Some people don't like those hard edges. Who cares? Who cares? Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of Geeks and Gamers is when I was I was hanging out with them, and I fully intend on hanging out. They're getting their house in Florida, and I don't know if they've announced all that stuff.
Yeah, they did.
Nice.
So they're doing this house in Florida, and when they get all moved in, I'm going to hang out with them a lot. I'm going to make my way over there.
That's awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be really great. But I think they are what ScrewAttack was to the counterculture then, they are to the counterculture now. Yeah. And I've been really open about that. I think what they've done, everything is going this way and they're trying to go this way. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that about them. And they got a great group of people, with Jeremy and Ryan and Blabs and Beardo and all those guys, they're all great. Mm-hmm. And then when you couple in with Gary at Nerdrotic, Gary's a stud. And, I'm actually heading down to San Antonio here in a couple of weeks to go hang out with him, which is going to be great. We're going to go to dinner. It's going to be cool. And he's that'll be actually I've talked with him. I've never actually met him because at the content house in Florida, we just kind of I was in and he was coming in as I was leaving. I didn't have a chance. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and chatting with him because I really appreciate what he's done. And, but it goes back to the labeling thing, right? People are like, oh, label this guy, this. And it's like, what are you talking about? He's a totally regular person.
Guy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so it's funny enough because I feel like that's why you guys got big at ScrewAttack. It's why they're getting big and why so many people enjoy their content is because they're just normal people. Like you said, they have these rigid edges in some of their things, but it's just that's what happens. That's what a normal person usually ends up having beliefs, and then usually they end up having some strong opinions. But you get over those strong opinions if you disagree, and you're still friends, and you still play a game together or just hang out. Like, it's what you do.
You're 100% right. And that's what I mean. Like, I feel like the gaming industry just has this giant stick, just like it's not just up the ass. It's like up and turned really hard. and I hope that kind of with me coming back, I'm able to kind of lodge that a little bit out, just a little bit, you know?
Yeah, you know what? Shove it all the way in and just like
pull it out the other way.
Push it in further and bring it out the other way. See how that intestine tract goes. But yeah, so Craig, thank you so much for coming on. This was freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah, of course, guys. This is great, and maybe in a few weeks we'll need to do it again, and I'll fill you in on the next move. So
I'll be. Hey, you wouldn't be mad if the announcement comes on this show. I'm just saying. Anyway,
anytime you want to.
Anytime, yeah. So again, he is Stuttering Craig Skistimas. Did I get it right? I got it. Nailed it. Okay. So again, as you heard, he is a pioneer of the internet YouTube gaming scene. If you're a gamer, if you've ever, watched Twitch, G4, any of this stuff, he's the guy that you need to thank for it because he set the foundation for all this. So thank you so much for coming on. If you like what you heard, everybody, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. We'll be back next week, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. So long.